What a perfect song today, and a beautiful voice. Plus, your dress, you could have been Maria singing that in West Side Story. It was wonderful. And I was just reflecting again on the lyrics in context of today's talk about there's a place for us, some way, somehow, somewhere, a place where forgiveness takes place and peace, and that's what this theme has been about for the month of July. Surrender equals freedom, and forgiveness and letting go. And so we're, as the opening song as well, letting go so that we may get to that place of peace. Somewhere is not a location. The somewhere is right here, right within the instrument, the vessel that you are. The somewhere is now. The time is now. It took me I could do a whole nother lecture now, Evie, thank you. And I have like pages of things. Anyway, first, after that, I want to thank John Boyle for last week. Oh, he is so good. He's so wonderful. He's so calming and so... It was just delicious. Don and I watched it on YouTube together, and we were both like laughing and crying and cheering, and it was wonderful. So if you hadn't seen or heard John from last week, I highly recommend you either buy the CD so you can listen to it, and or look on our website on the YouTube and watch the wonderful video. It was amazing. And he was talking, because he kept the theme of letting go, and he was talking about letting go of the monkey bars in school and how he learned that, as a kid you had to do the monkey bars and go across and trust. And Don turns around and looks at me and goes, "You didn't do that, did you?" I went, "No, I was a protected only child. Monkey bars? No way." But then I started thinking about that, and I thought about the spiritual monkey bars, and I wondered if, because I didn't, as a kid, get to climb across that and learn how to grab on, let go, and trust and faith, if maybe that's why it's been a different challenge to letting go. But please listen to John's talk. It's really quite extraordinary. So, true freedom comes from the ability to exercise a spiritual practice called forgiveness, and the choice to forgive is always a gift we give ourselves. So, if the idea of forgiveness made you kind of go, this is about gifting yourselves today, to get to a place of letting go, of faith and trust, and letting go of the real or the metaphorical monkey bars and moving on. Today's talk title is Forgive... ... give for. Now you can't see it, but the for and the give are in italics because it was inspired by Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith in an article he had in July issue of Intervisions magazine, and he wrote, "When we identify and gain freedom from that which constricts our spiritual evolutionary progress, then we have freedom for living our vision. A positive freedom that empowers us to respond from the innermost core of our being to what life's unpredictable surprises can present at any given moment." So the idea of forgiveness equals freedom is to get freedom from that which constricts us, which imprisons us, which traps us. And usually those are those things that have happened in our lives that we don't want to let go of. I don't care how pretty Idina Menzel sings or how lovely Elsa looks in Frozen, in her Frozen blue. We don't want to let go. And I've been thinking about this the past couple of days going, we all know about forgiveness. We were taught that as kids. Then we grew up and we found ourselves into some spiritual path or practice, and we were taught about forgiveness. Forgive our debtors and those, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, well, why is it that we don't want to? And I know that when there are major challenges, big, giant ones that are really painful, scary, hard, those seem and probably are more difficult to release and forgive. But if you're like me in any way, shape, or form, I know that there's probably a list of grievances by which you haven't let go of just because. Well, because you want to be right. Just because you don't want to let go of that, just in case that person might think that he or she could come back into your life and do it to you again. I'm holding on to this one because, see, I still have the proof of it, so you can't do it to me again. And in some ways, when we have those grievances and those issues and we hold them in our hand in fists, which is a very negative, violent, confrontative thing, we're doing this to them. We've got the grievance and we're holding our fist up as protection to keep them from doing it again. And we have a vested interest in that. There's emotional attachment to that. I still have some. And then even today, when I was driving here, there was somebody who did something in their car that was like really stupid and dangerous. And I found myself saying that. What do you think you're doing? That's stupid and dangerous and blah, 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 blah. And I realized I was judging them. And of course, most of that would be like dismissed because I'm not going to carry on and talk about it again, am I? And then I realized exactly that. I was still holding on to it. Now, I'm choosing that one because it's very benign. Nobody got hurt. Nothing, the world didn't crumble. And yet, there was that part of me that just was indignant and wanted to, have you ever had somebody do something like that? You almost want to stop the car, get out, and go, what were you thinking? Hello, where? Never, no, it doesn't happen to any of you, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to drive where you drive then. Or there's things that happen in life that someone does, and then my brain goes to, usually after I've done that and I've watched myself get all indignant and hussy and putting up a fit and getting angry, and then it's like the collar comes down and the angel wings and goes, how do you know that person wasn't having a bad day? How do you know that person wasn't on their way to or from a hospital? And then I go, oh, I'm sorry, and then I want to follow them, and instead of telling them that I think they're a jerk, I want to apologize and say, how may I help? Is there something going on? That notwithstanding, what it reminded me this morning with this tiny little instance was that how many of those little tiny instances do we collect throughout the day that kind of resonate or gravitate to parts of our being whereby we're holding on to something and we've got a snark, a hidden snark. And we don't even know. I don't know the person in that blue car or truck, whatever that was. So it's not something that I can say, well, I hope that they get their wits about them, they come and they apologize and I'll forgive and let them go. You don't get that opportunity with all of the things that happen in the world, the injustices, the grievances, the annoyances. We don't get that. So what I'm thinking is that if we want to get to the bigger things that we want to forgive, the ones we have about the unrequited love, the job promotion we didn't get, the yada yada, the bigger ones, those hard ones, we need to start looking at how to let go of the little ones. Let it go. We do it maybe with helium in our voice. Let it go, let it go. Instead of the big, I forgive you, I let it go. We need to practice the little ones. Well, there are big ones. And there is a woman that's on the internet who's a coach, a writer now, and inspired. Her name is Colleen Haggerty. And she has written a book that's being released, I think in November. It's called A Leg to Stand On. And she talks about the story of being hit by a car and having to have her leg amputated. And the process by which she had to get to a place, let me put that differently, not had to get. She chose to get to a place of forgiveness because along that journey, she realized how much what happened was continuing to injure her. Now, there isn't any of us in this room who wouldn't take that story as a, horrible thing. How do you forgive somebody, the drunk driver, whoever it was that did this, et cetera? And we can empathize with her and go, oh, that's a big one. That's not a guy, forgetting to signal and, making me, that's big. And yet this woman, through her journey of healing, physical and emotional and spiritual healing, learn things about letting go. And she opens up her blog on her website with a quote from Paul Boese, B-O-E-S-E. Forgive me if I'm not saying it right. Forgiveness does not change the past, but it does enlarge the future. Oh. Well, when I think about it that way, I don't want my future hampered or constricted by anything or anyone. And so if I am still hanging on to lousy drivers or, exes that didn't do whatever or jobs that I didn't get, if I'm holding on to those on any level in my being, I am coloring, filtering, or impacting my future of the higher good. I don't want to do that. oh. So there was a part of me that was like, okay, can I just, it's kind of like Spock mind meld and just, or I Dream of Jeannie, erase all those things and just be in a place of forgiveness and let it go? Well, yes, I could. And I'm still human, and it's not that easy. I still have to take the time to look at these grievances and injustices, and when they come up for me, and you know how you can tell? First of all, usually there's a tightness in the stomach, the breath starts to change, the lip starts to curl, kind of like my dog when she starts to snarl, and then the fists and the teeth clench. Any one or a combination thereof of those physical symptoms will tells me that there's not a healing about that situation. Whereas there are things in my life, that have come through and, yeah, they were hard, or yeah, they hurt, or there were things, and you go, yeah. And there's no visceral response. You recall them the same way as you recall, oh, yes, I graduated on this day, and I reported over there. You don't put emotional attention on it. If when you think about someone or something, and any of those physical things start to happen, you have some work to do. So this wonderful woman, Colleen Haggerty, said, do my bitter feelings and resentment still surface? Absolutely. But now I don't allow them to define me as a victim. I allow them to remind me to forgive again and again and again. Wow. So here's this woman whose physical life was hugely impacted and changed by this accident, feeling like a victim, as one might after something like that, has learned that when those feelings of bitterness, why me-ness, comes forward, instead of, she probably takes a breath or whatever her spiritual practice is, and it is a reminder, oh, I have to forgive. And maybe it's not about forgiving the person who created that situation for her. Maybe it's to remind her to forgive the little something when the mailman forgot to put stuff in the package right, and the gift arrived at the other side all bent, damaged. And it was a special birthday present. So maybe she has to learn to forgive that. But the idea being is that when those situations come up for her, or can come up for us, we have the opportunity, instead of holding on to it, saying, I told you, you ought to know, you can't beat City Hall, see what happens? And we have a tendency to move into race consciousness and attach a situation to some other situation, and usually it isn't even ours. And then we have justification. We're vindicated by that. Yeah, well, I'll show you. And we're the ones that are victimized by that. So she remembers to forgive. She goes on to say that forgiveness is a journey. When our heart becomes too heavy with the burden of bitterness, there are distinguishable steps that can lead us to inner peace. And I'm going to give you what she says for that. But I want to start with a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, who is one of our inspirational founders that inspired Ernest Holmes. And he said, for every minute you remain angry, you give up 60 seconds of peace of mind. Quid pro quo. Oh, I like this part better. And I do know, I'll own it for myself, so I'm sure it matches some of you. I do know that sometimes it feels good to be that, doesn't it? Well, I told you not to do that again. How could you do that to me? Don't you know, and don't you feel a certain rush when you do that? There's an adrenaline rush. And somehow, because our society and our bodies like those little, some people use caffeine for that, some people use other things for that, some people use television and movies, that we viscerally live things by going to some of those movies because it gives us that, sometimes we get hooked in our anger and our resentments because it gives us a little rush and we feel kind of, okay, we're human, that's going to happen. And we get to consciously look at that, watch our response, watch or feel rather, where it is in the body temple, where we may be starting to constrict energy and create an impress that we don't want to have later on. So if we have and we get snarking, to someone else, and then we come back and we're huffy and we're puffy because we're indignant and we know it won't. No, that doesn't feel so good. Okay, I got a quick rush out of that. Now I want to forgive. I want to release it. I don't want to carry that. Even if I don't consciously carry it, I don't want the residue of that anywhere in my being. So I have to forgive. I have to let it go. I have to let it go. She asks, what about you? Is there something in your past that is hard to forgive? Do you want to let that go? Do you want to live more fully into your potential by releasing the past? She suggests these 4 steps. 1, acknowledge your feelings related to the situation and actually feel them. Most of us don't want to go back to a situation that caused us pain, physical or emotional. If it happened, we want to respond to it, and then we want to, in a way, we want to let it go because we want to block it out. We don't want to feel that again because we were hurt. So you may be looking at me, why are you being masochistic? Why do you want me to feel that again and hurt? Well, in the current issue of the Science of Mind magazine, in the back, Doctors Wahlberg and Newberg and Wallman, I get them backwards, that's, Sears and Roebuck, but the 2 guys, the scientists that are in there that write every month, we're talking about this in a different way, talking about when we get hurt, we have a window of opportunity in our mind to diffuse it, to release it right then and there. How they say to do it is to relive it over and over again, because you've got a short window of cosmic time. I don't know whose cosmic window it is, but by reliving it over and over again, you begin to diffuse it, diffuse it, diffuse it, diffuse it, diffuse it, diffuse it. So yeah, it happened, but it's no longer a hot burning ember. I used to use this process. I had no idea it was going to be so famous. But I used to use this process with physical stuff. You know, if you stubbed your toe or you hit your thumb with a hammer, and it hurts like the dickens. For some reason, something in me always taught me to do it again. Feel as if the hammer hit it. Feel as if the hammer hit it. Stub it, stub it, stub it, stub it, until I don't really feel that. And even though the toe or the thumb may still be throbbing, I'm not feeling that of it, which has impressed itself. So when I read their article, I translated that to the emotional, spiritual times that we are hurt and thought, yes, that's what we need to do. When we get rejected, you call up this person and you say you want to ask them out on a date and they say no, and you feel hurt, you feel rejected, you want to go, keep feeling that until it neutralizes. You felt betrayed, angry, hurt, what? Play it out over and over again. I think we still have a few copies of the magazine. You can buy that or get it online. Tiny, tiny article, but you get to change that. She goes on to say, number 2, see the situation from the other person's perspective. Ooh, that's tricky. Because if that other person is the one who hurt you, chances are you don't want to know. No. You were wrong, you hurt me, I don't. However, if you begin to open up with a space of compassion and neutrality to see the other person's perspective, it might change how you respond to what happened. It happened in her story, but I'm not going to go into that if you're interested in reading her book that's coming out, or she does have a website. I'll find it for you, but she does have a website, Colleen Haggerty. Number 3, release your bitter feelings. Well, we talked about that. If you're holding on to that poison, you're the one that's being poisoned, not the person who hurt you. You need to release and let it go. Number 4, make the choice to forgive. Oh, you have to choose to forgive. It doesn't come automatically. And sometimes, with certain situations, you have to forgive over and over again. As I said in the beginning, the situation comes up, you start to feel it, you start to relive it, you may need to release it and let it go because you hadn't been given this wonderful information about how to let it go before it impresses itself. Therefore, that's why I say it's really important now. When the hard stuff happens, the pain happens, whatever the situation, if you can diffuse it and neutralize it now and let it go now, you won't be collecting a reservoir. So it's kind of like dust bunnies, because when people do something wrong to you and the dust bunnies collect, and then pretty soon you look pretty fuzzy and you're walking out, and then more dust bunnies are going to come to you. You're just a Velcro magnet. So you're a Velcro magnet for the injustices, or becoming a victim, or pain and sorrow, and I never will, and all of that stuff, because you've created that template for it. We want to change that. And so you get to choose to change and forgive the people, places, and things that have caused you grief and pain in the past. And now you have a new template and some tools. So if someone or something comes and happens now, you know how to diffuse it so you don't carry it for years and years and years. Key thing about forgiveness, because, man, there are tons of things, and history will give us tons of examples. Forgiveness is never about condoning the other person's action. People do wrong things. People do bad things. You forgiving someone for having done something wrong, something hurtful, something that was intended to hurt, you forgiving them does not mean you go, yeah, nothing to worry about. Go ahead, walk all over me. It's all right. Here, you want to try again? And if you're a girl, you'll say, here are some stilettos. Now I can try that again. Walk in heels all over me. I'm just a doormat. It's not about that. You're not condoning someone else's error or ignorance or meanness. You are forgiving to give for a place and an environment of compassion and neutrality and wholeness so that you are not impacting your future. Is that making some sense? Marianne Williamson goes on to say, any resentment you hold onto is a wall in front of your heart. We got enough of those. You know, it probably started in grade school when you know, like the Charlie Brown Valentine, you put something out and somebody didn't respond with a Valentine. There's a small little filter. The filters that we put over our heart to protect ourselves need to be dissolved. Any resentment you hold on to is a wall in front of your heart. No technique other than forgiveness can remove it, and no one but you can do that. Yeah, you get to come to a place like this, or you take a class, or you read a book, or you listen to a meditation online, and there are tools and there are reminders, but the work is yours to do. Ernest Holmes writes, the divine plan is one of freedom. The inherent nature of man is ever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom, because freedom is the birthright of every soul, and that's why I say forgiveness, surrender, equals freedom. So that you are free and unencumbered to live your divine birthright. Now, many of you may not know, but about 18 years ago, International Forgiveness Day was established. It was originally August 1st. It's celebrating this year on August 3rd. Many New Thought and high mucky-muck people have come together to create this alliance, including Marshall Rosenberg, one of the founders of nonviolent communication. And it's a nonprofit organization to evoke the spirit of forgiveness worldwide, because they declare that forgiveness is the greatest healer of them all. Without forgiveness, there is no future. Why? Well, of course, future's going to come, time's going to. No future, because if you aren't forgiving, you are stuck in the past. If I had time, I would have done props, and I would have had a whole retinue of suitcases and baggage and boxes, and you could see, you know, it's like Scrooge, it's like Marley. Remember, he came with all those chains, encumbered by that, and he came to tell Scrooge, you don't have to live your life like this. Let go of that so you aren't chained to the past. So they have a huge mission, huge. And they have a website, International Forgiveness Day. Their goal is to have this known in they call every village and hamlet across the world. I like that. By the year 2025, practice forgiveness, develop training programs to certify counselors as forgiveness life skill teachers. That sounded really intriguing to me. Create forgiveness workshops, promote and publicize, help develop further research, create entertainment and learning events like film festivals, etc., around the world, to really get this idea out into the mainstream so that it becomes a natural order of things rather than something just for spiritual, religious folk who know how to do it. Along with that, Nobel Prize winner Desmond Tutu has aligned with the organization, and he has online, if you want to do it, a forgiveness challenge. He started it in May of this year, but it's a 30-day challenge that you can take. You can go online, and it says it will answer your questions about forgiveness and even learn how to forgive. And I thought, ooh, I didn't have enough time to go and do all that before this talk. And I think I'm going to choose to sign up for it when I get back from some of my travels so that I can have 30 days in a row to do that. But if you're really interested in pursuing the idea of forgiveness, I would suggest this as a way, because I have a feeling there'll be coaching questions, and there's a form that you can answer, as does Colleen Haggerty have that on her website. So, because you don't have to do this alone. And any of us who have gone through that process knows that forgiveness is not one of the fun, easy, sparkly processes that we do. But boy, does it feel good when we can let it go, when we surrender that into the freedom of who we are, because we want to be who we are first, and then who we are yet to be. I'm going to close with a little bit of an article from, I guess you can tell I'm supporting the Science in My magazine, but it is one of my favorite pieces. This is from the June magazine. And Kathy Jolene, who is a licensed practitioner, and she used to be the editor of the magazine several years ago, wrote a wonderful piece. And in her article, she happened to address forgiveness a little ahead of our time, so I wanted to do this. So I think actually I'm going to have you I'm going to read a little of it, and then I'm going to take us into a closing prayer. So get comfortable. Close your eyes if you want to, because I want you to absorb this. Don't effort to get all of this. Simply, even by closing your eyes and surrendering to this, what you need to hear and know from this, you will glean. It will land upon you like sweet fairy dust and wrap itself around you so that you may understand it on a higher level. She writes, "We need wait no longer to claim the highest and the best that life has to offer, our God-given birthright of peace and freedom. It is now time to forgive. The more that we delay, resist, or avoid taking the step into release and renewal, the more we continue to suffer the pain and resentment we are letting our past experience evoke in us. Forgiveness reconciles us with the hurtful things that have happened by opening our heart to the ever-present unity within. Events simply are. It is our reaction to those events that leads to suffering. Rather than react by seeing enmity and discord, we can see the good in all that happens. Seeing the good, we free ourselves from suffering and open into a greater spaciousness of being. To forgive is to live in conscious unity with love, dissolving any sense of separation. And just as the sun sets each evening and daylight fades, so also do the events of that day. Whatever happened during recent hours is gone. It is past. And when you allow the old to fade from prominence in your mind, you are clearing the way for renewal. Now is the only time you have, and you can set into motion a bright new experience of life when you tap the miracle-working power of the present moment. The more you dwell on the past, reliving old discords or disappointments, the less energy you have to use in moving toward your higher good. Focus instead on what you do desire. Expand into your higher good when you let this new present moment open you to greater possibilities. That which has gone before served as a learning opportunity for you, and now you are beyond that point. You have learned and grown, and now you are moving forward. By dying to the old, you open the door to a greater tomorrow." So let's take a moment to together, collectively let it go. Breathing in, let the breath fill your entire being. Let it oxygenate the cells and the organs so that you are present. You are in your body in this moment, in this room, at this time. And we can even let all that's preceded this go. Even if there were pearls of wisdom that were shared, beautiful music that was sung, a fabulous breakfast, any or all of that, now let it go. Be bold enough, brave enough, saucy enough to be here now. Be present. Be mindful. Just be. And from that beingness now, open the mind and the heart and the whole life that you are, and open it to the universe, and surrender. You don't even have to identify what you're surrendering. Just be willing to surrender. And in that clearing, we may have dissolved circumstances, situations, beliefs, feelings, patterns that you didn't even know you were still holding on to. Let them go. Give yourself permission to let them go. Because trust me, whatever needs to come back up for you to look at, to consciously, attentively, lovingly heal, it'll be there. But there are tons of little ones, and those miscellaneous ones, we can just let it go. We have a group collective amnesty that's done. We may release, forgive, release, forgive again, release, and surrender. And now that we are clear and open and receptive and willing, I will speak this spiritual mind treatment in the first person so that you may say it along with you if you want. I know that there is only the life of God, the one life, my life. Oh, how good it is to know that there is that power that is in the universe greater than I am, but I am of that power and I can use it for my highest good, and that allows me to know that I am one with God. One with all of the ancient teachings and wisdom of the universe. One with the higher order of nature and my being. And now that I know that, I claim that, I declare that, I can then further declare those things that I wish to outpicture in my life. I can step aside and let God's vision through me show forth the beauty, the majesty, the abundance, the health and vitality, the peace of mind, the love and the creativity that I seek and desire. And it matters not if that hasn't outpictured before now, because now is the time. Now is the only time. It is God's time, therefore it's my time, and I claim it. I'm ready for it. I don't even stand in judgment or resentment that it took me so long to get to this point to accept it today. I release that. I forgive myself for not knowing it before now. I bring myself back to this present moment that is the richness, the power, and the glory of good, of God, of me, here, now. And I claim it. I accept it. I make room for it because I have released everything else. And I know that as I claim it for myself, I make it possible for the people around me that I love. I make it possible by changing this idea and thought in race consciousness so that whoever else needs to get it, to understand it, to forgive, release, surrender, and be free, it is available for them in the wisdom, in the one mind of which I am. Oh, that's good to know. Yes, yes, somewhere there's a place for us. And that place is here. Someday, that time is now. A time for living, loving, forgiving. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you. I breathe this in, and now I have to let this prayer go too. Trust and know it's done its perfect work in and through and as me. I now lovingly bless and release it. I let it be. Please join me as we together say, and so it is, and so I am, and so we are. Amen.